First of all, is it happening? Well, no, of course it isn't. In 1988, James Hansen of NASA, the court jester of global warming, predicted in front of the US Congress that there would be getting on for 1 Celsius degree more warming by now than we have seen. In 1990, the first Intergovernmental Panel on Climate report, thousands of pages long, predicted that the rate of global warming would be 3 times what we have seen since then. So the temperatures are not rising anything like as fast as they said they were. In fact, if you take the average over the last 60 years, since 1950, which was roughly the point at which we began to be able to measure how much carbon dioxide there is in the atmosphere, there has been only 0.6, 0.7 Celsius of warming. That's a rate equivalent to around just over 1 Celsius per century. Yet the UN is predicting 3 Celsius in the coming century. And at the beginning of that century, we've now had 1/11th of it, and the amount of warming in that time is, no, we've had 1/8 of it now, haven't we? The amount of warming in that time is 0. There hasn't been any. So it's way under what they were predicting. Yes, the world is warming. Yes, I would expect it to go on warming if we add carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. But I can see no scientific reason why it should warm at any rate faster than it has in the last 50 years, in which case there is no problem. Sea level, we were told by Al Gore, was going to rise by 20 feet imminently. That is 600 centimetres. Now, the satellite that has been monitoring sea level for the last 8 years, the Envisat satellites, just closed down. That produced real-time data, or very nearly so, and it showed sea level rising throughout that 8 years at a rate equivalent to 1 inch per century. Not 1 foot per decade, as Al Gore was predicting, 1 inch per century. Is that a problem? It's not even enough to get the water coming in over the edges of your shoes. Of course it's not a problem. Sea ice extent is quite likely in the Arctic to reach a new low this year. There's my prediction, a rash one, as you may think. But does this matter? No, because sea ice extent in the Antarctic has been increasing because the Antarctic has been cooling for 30 years. So the overall extent of global sea ice has not really changed that much. A little bit of a decline in the last few years, but nothing to write home about, nothing beyond natural variability. Probably it's now much the same as it was in the 1950s. Then there's the land ice and snow cover. Well, Greenland, first of all, it grew 2 feet of ice across more or less the entire sheet, except for the coastal fringes. Then it lost 1/4 of that again, and that's the history of it in the last 30 years. Antarctica has been a steady accumulation of ice on the high plateau of eastern Antarctica as Antarctica has cooled. Real damage has been done environmentally in the Arctic glens. And of course the snow cover in the northern hemisphere reached a maximum since the satellites began watching it 33 years ago, just a couple of years ago in 2010. So we are not facing any of the predictions that they said. They've all gone wrong. It isn't happening. Droughts are not happening as they said. The Sahara has lost 300,000 square kilometres to vegetation over the last 30 years, according to scientific papers, allowing nomads to go back and settle territories that have never been lived in living memory. These are not problems, these are advantages of a warmer and hence moister climate. In Australia, where the Chief Climate Commissioner confidently predicted that the Murray-Darling Basin would remain dry forever, there was thunderous rainstorms over the last 2 years that has filled up the entire system once again. These cycles of drought and flood have gone on throughout history. They will continue to go on, nothing to do with us. So no, it isn't happening. Second question, will it happen as expected? No, there's no reason to suppose it will. The only way in which they can get away with trying to say we're going to see 3 Celsius of warming by the end of this century, or 3 Celsius in response to a doubling of CO2 concentration, is by imagining that the 1 Celsius of warming, which is commonly accepted as the original direct warming from CO2, is amplified threefold by what are called temperature feedbacks. The evidence we're now getting from the satellites and from careful analysis of behaviour of clouds indicates that these feedbacks do not, in fact, increase the warming at all. They may even reduce it a little. And there are powerful theoretical reasons for expecting that feedbacks are far more likely to be somewhat net negative, attenuating the original 1 Celsius of warming from CO2, than net positive, amplifying it. So I would expect to see 1 Celsius of warming from CO2. I would not expect to see 3. So it'll be maybe 1 Celsius warmer by the end of this century than today. That's not a problem. Your third question, even if these problems were as severe as the UN says, even if we were going to get 3 Celsius of warming by the end of this century, is it cost effective to do anything about it? The answer to that is no, because each individual measure to make global warming go away costs billions typically. One wind farm in the UK is costing 2 billion in subsidy over its 20-year lifetime. And even if it works exactly as well as its inventors have wished, you would not be able to measure with any modern instrument or method the change in global temperature that that windmill, by not emitting CO2, would cause. And there's the problem. Only a very, very, very small change in CO2 concentration would arise from each measure to try to make the global warming go away. That in turn means that only a very, very small amount of warming that would otherwise occur will be prevented. That means in turn that every measure that you might implement to try to make global warming go away will be, for that purpose, cost ineffective. And any measure that was inexpensive enough to be affordable will be ineffective. Any measure expensive enough to be effective will be unaffordable. Focused adaptation to the consequences of any global warming that may occur and that may prove to be adverse is an order of magnitude 10 times cheaper than spending a single red cent today. Our best bet, economically speaking, is to sit back and enjoy the sunshine.